Hey guys, this is Mike with Flyin Miata. Nice to see you out here again. Wanted to talk about our new 2019 RF GTS model, Jones. So, apologize in advance. It's a little noisy around here. Our shipping department is hard at work packaging up new boxes and all the orders that are coming through. But bear with me. If you need me to repeat anything, just let me know. Also, if you have any questions, please post them in the comments and I'll try to answer them as we go along. So, first of all, this is the new Eternal Blue mica color that Mazda just released for the 2019 year. So we thought it was a nice addition to our fleet. This particular car is also wearing a set of 17x8 6ULs wrapped in some 235/40/17 Yokohama S drives. They're a particularly nice tire for street use, but they're still plenty grippy. This car also has equipped our Koni Stage 2 suspension kit, so it's got the Koni adjustable shocks, FM springs, and our adjustable sway bars along with end links. So it handles quite nicely. For power, this car is mostly stock. We do have our high flow mid-pipe with catalytic converter and the Hush-O-Matic muffler installed on this, so it is making a little bit more power than stock. On our dyno, we saw an increase of about 16 horsepower and roughly 7 pound-feet of torque with the new exhaust compared to the factory stuff. So it is pretty peppy right now, just as it is. Let's go ahead and we'll take a look under the hood because I'm sure that's what most people are interested in on the new car. So right off the bat, there's not a whole bunch in here that looks different from the 2016 through 18 models. The engine bay looks pretty much the same. This car, the only thing new that you can see in the engine bay is we do have our dual hood lift kit that makes it much easier to keep the hood lifted without having to use the prop rod. Also lifts it up a little bit higher, and it's very convenient. We put them on most all of our shop cars. This engine though is what most guys are interested in, that it's got more power, right? So this engine, it does have revised intake and exhaust, and the head's a little bit tweaked as well. When we did a little bit of investigation, we found that the intake plenum is a little larger, the runners are a little bit bigger. They also have a 5mm increased diameter on the throttle body to allow more air into the engine. And likewise on the exhaust side, the exhaust ports are about 3mm larger than the 2016 through 18 engines that we have seen here at the shop. All this nets out to about, I think it's 23, 24 horsepower more than the previous generation, a little bit more. Basically all that power though, the power curve that we're seeing is pretty much the same, a little bit higher, but pretty much the same profile as the 2016 through 18 cars, just that above 6,000 RPM, that power keeps climbing, it just keeps going, which we really like. The reviness of this engine gives it a very fun and playful nature that all of us here at Flyin Miata really like the new car. It's such a sweetheart. Are there any questions about the new car so far?
Not at the moment.
Okay, all right. So we'll continue talking a little bit about the little features that make this car different. Chassis-wise, the car is pretty close to the same. There's a few minor differences in some of the interior bits, but oh, do we have a question?
We have the question, is that a factory shock tower brace?
It is. Yep, this is a factory shock tower brace. In the previous, the 2016 through 18s, only the club models got them, and I think you could special order them from Mazda. This is a GTS, so it's basically the GT trim with the club suspension and a limited slip differential. For the new 19s, it's kind of a special, you get everything. So this is standard equipment though. All right. Other than that, new things on the car itself. You'll see that it also has a black top for the RFs, which is a special feature that they just released on the 19s. The previous generation, the ND1s, We're the same factory body color all the way across. Other minor differences is that now the car has 2 stop detents in it, whereas the previous had 3. And they did this, I think, to allow better opening position whenever the car is parked and you're in a parking lot and don't have to worry about smacking the car next to you when it's at the first detent. It does have updated cup holders. Basically, it helps you to get the little cup holder pieces slotted in a little easier. It does have a standard rear view camera. Whenever you put it in reverse, there's a camera actually mounted in the bumper from the factory, and that is a new feature as far as the standard location and the type of camera for the 19 years. Other than that, it's kind of like the 2016 through 18 RFs that you've seen before for most everything else. All the body panels, from what we can tell, other than the bumper cover, are the same. So it's a very familiar car for us. Just a few little tweaks that Mazda did that really make this car just a little bit better. And the driving is actually very nice with the new engine. So we really like it. Hope you guys are really getting some good information on the new cars and the product reviews that we're starting to do. If you have any questions or would like to talk about or have us talk about anything, let us know in the comments. We sure appreciate it. Thanks again, guys. And oh yeah, I forgot. I'm sure that there are some out there that would like to see the top go down, so let's do that real quick.
You got a question?
Oh, wait, I don't have the key. I apologize, we don't have the key.
The key is inbound.
Okay, yeah, hang on just a moment. We'll have the key so that way I can put the top down in just a second. There's a question, so let's answer that.
Is the black top removable?
The black portion of the top, I suppose if you really wanted to remove it with some serious tools, you probably could, but it's something that's an integral part of the top. The rest of it, these panels right here, are all together as one piece. If you don't like the black top, probably the easiest way to go about that is having it wrapped or having it painted. But no, essentially the answer is no. These are part of the top. All right, so we have the keys now, so let's go ahead and I'll show you what it looks like with the top coming down. As you can see, it's a pretty quick operation. This is something that you can easily, if you pull up to a stoplight and you want to throw the top down or put it up, it only takes a few seconds. One of my favorite features on the new RFs is that you still get to keep these really beautiful flying buttress kind of design for the B pillar in place, even with the top down, kind of like a Target top car. But these ones, of course, you do have a little bit of flexibility with them for going around town, and you don't have to decide whether or not you want a full-time hardtop or not.
Got one more question.
Oh, one more question. Okay.
How does the interior room compare to an NB?
Oh, so the question is, how does the interior room compare to an MB Miata, the second generation? They do have a better seating position. They do have, at least as far as height is concerned, I think that the new seats, the ND seats, do put you down a little bit lower in the car, a better driver position. Also, the new 19s do have a adjustable steering wheel, which the earlier cars do not, which is pretty nice, especially if you're a taller or bigger person. As far as footroom is concerned, I think the NDs do have a little bit less footroom than the second generation cars, but overall it still feels very much like a Miata. Tighter quarters than a lot of the other larger cars out on the market now. It's still a small two-seater, but overall very familiar. One more question?
Another question. Is a GTS noticeably quieter than a GT RF?
So the question is if the GTS is quieter, noticeably quieter than the GT RF. That's hard to say. I don't think that I've noticed any difference between the two, the previous generation GT and the GTS RF. I think that they're pretty close to the same. I could be wrong. I think Mazda did use a little bit more insulation in the top on the GTS models. But if they did, it's not a whole bunch. They're still better than a pure soft top as far as sound is concerned. Not a lot of wind buffeting noise. They're quite quiet actually, even on highway speeds with the top up. So better than a soft top as far as noise, but they're still convertibles. Just this one happens to have a power retractable hardtop. All right.
Question.
More questions? Okay,
Someone
excellent.
asking if we had our choice between an NA or an ND, what would you take?
Oh man, okay. That's an unfair question. You gotta love the pop-ups, right? But if this were a daily driver, I would certainly pick the RF. The new cars have so much more torque, really. For daily driving, it makes it a very easy car to get along with. It's very simple to drive. There's not as many rattles and squeaks and that kind of stuff that you typically get with the older cars now that they're 20 plus years old. I think that if you're looking for a very fun kind of weekend cruiser, they both do an excellent job. But if we're talking about pure niceties, yeah, the RF is a pretty clear winner. Any other questions?
We got two more that came in.
Oh, okay.
First one is, do the new sport seats sit lower? This is a question for tall people who may want to get one.
They are a little bit lower. We're not talking huge leaps and bounds. The new seats on this model, I like the seating position myself. I'm about 5'11", so I'm not a terribly tall guy, but this does put my field of vision right in the center of the windshield, right over the top of the steering wheel. So it is a nice seating position. I personally prefer the 19 seats over the 16 through 18s just because it drops you down a little bit. But if you're a 6 foot plus guy, then you may still be rubbing your hair against the top whenever it's up. They're still small cars, unfortunately. What's the second question?
Second question, if you had the heart of an ND, would you take it in an NA?
That would be an excellent car, I think, but it would be a huge undertaking. When we learned how the electrical system in the NDs work, they have a very complex CAN bus connection. So all of the individual components and all of the computers within the electrical system talk to each other, and there's tons of information going back and forth. So if you wanted to be able to put an ND heart into an NA, you could, but you'd basically have to take all of the electrical components, including those that are attached to like the steering rack, the transmission, all of that kind of stuff that's attached to mechanical components would also have to go over to the new car, well, to the old car, to make that work. Otherwise, if you start messing with the electrical system in this, it'll get unhappy in a hurry because it wants to see all of those signals working in tandem with each other. So it would be cool, but that's a lot of work. Any other questions?
One last one.
One more? Okay, one more.
Any way to lower a Mazda Speed Miata seat?
There is a very popular method called a foamectomy. That has been around for a while. If you want to see more about it, check out Miata.net. They actually have a pretty good write-up on how to do the foamectomy. It's commonly done on the first 2 generations because their seats are a little bit simpler. On the current generation and even the NC, you could probably do something similar, but the seats are definitely more involved to be able to get to that point. Basically, it's scooping out some of the foam to make the cushion sit down a little bit lower. For some guys, especially the tall guys, that may not be enough, and a lot of the time for that, the only answer is to get an aftermarket seat that's more a racing bucket that'll get you lower down in the floor to give you some more room. All right. Oh, is there one more?
One more.
Okay, last one.
Does the NA feel more pure than the ND?
Does the NA feel more pure than the ND? It does feel like a very nostalgic sports car. I do enjoy driving the NAs and even the NBs because they're very similar chassis. I think that if you like more of a retro style classic styling, then they are a much, well, obviously a very popular choice. We love them. As far as the actual roadster feel, these new cars will surprise you. If you haven't driven a new NB, give it a try. Go down to your local Mazda dealer and just tell them you want to test drive the car, and I think you'll be surprised that they feel very similar. There's definitely more niceties, but this doesn't really lose the Miata character that we fell in love with back in 1990. All right, well, that's it for today, guys. We sure appreciate it. If you have any more questions, give us a call, send us an email, and if nothing else, we'll see you next Thursday around the same time. Thanks again.